morning to you students. So today we are going to see about the second part of We Are Not Afraid to Die If We All Be Together, written by Jordan Cook and Alan East. So before going into the text, we'll see a short recap of our previous lesson. So the narrator and his wife, they plan on a voyage around the world just like the famous Captain James Cook. So in July 1976, they all started their journey from Plymouth, England, and they sailed from Africa to Cape Town, which was quite a pleasant journey in the beginning. So before heading east, the narrator, he hired two crewmen, Larry Vigil and Herb Segler, to help them tackle one of the roughest sea, the Southern Indian Ocean. After that, they encountered strong waves during the second day, and by September 25th, the Christmas day, they all managed to reach 35,000 kilometers east of the Cape Town. And the family, somehow they managed to surpass all the bad weather, and they celebrated the Christmas together. And again the weather changed for the worse, and on January 2nd, the big waves, it hit them. And they tried to slow down the ship down by dropping storm jib and hit a heavy mooring rope in a loop across the stern, but it doesn't help much. So they carried over the life raft, drill attached lifelines, they donned life jackets, and they waited for a peaceful time to come. And later in the evening, a vertical and a huge wave, it struck down the ship, and the narrator, he was thrown off from the ship. And now he accepted his approaching death, and he started losing his consciousness. So when the ship is about to overturn, a huge wave hit again, and it turned right back. So he suffered lots and lots of injuries in his ribs and mouth, and he grabbed a guardrail and he sailed into the ship. So now he instructed his wife Mary to guard the wheel, and he realized that the ship has so much of water in the lower parts. So his crewmen, they started pumping out the water like a madman, and the narrator, he went to their children in the cabin, and he checked on them. And his daughter, she informs that she was having some swelling in his head, but he ignores that part because his major concern was to save the ship. So from there we stopped the lesson, and now we are going to continue with the rest of the lines. More problems arose when our hand pump started to block up with the debris floating around the cabins, and the electric pump short-circuited. The water level rose threateningly. Back on the deck, I found out that our two spare hand pumps had been drenched overboard, along with the forestay sail, the jib, the dings, and the main anchor. Then I remembered we had another electric pump under the chat room floor. I connected it to our outpipe and was thankful to find out it worked. So here, a deflected means turn aside, canvas means a strong and bleached cloth, debris means rubbish, wrenched means pulled suddenly, and forestay means a rope to support ship's foremast, and dinghies means a small boat for recreation with mast or sail. So here the narrator, he stretched the canvas cloth and secured the waterproof hatch which covered the gaping holes. So the hand pump, it was blocked as rubbish was floating around the cabins, and it entered it. The electric pump got short-circuited. So as the water level rose up, the narrator, he found two hand pumps had been removed along with the rope, jib, a small boat, and a main anchor. So he found another electric pump under the chart room, and he connected it out on a pipe, and it started working. The night dragged on an endless, bitterly cold routine of pumping, steering, and working the radio. We were getting no replies to our mayday calls, which was not surprising in this remote corner of the world. Sue's head had swollen alarmingly. She had two enormous black eyes, and now she showed as a deep cut on her arm. When I asked why she hadn't made more of her injuries before this, she replied, "I didn't want to worry you when you were trying to save us all." So here mayday calls means words used to signal ships stuck in a disastrous situation through radio. Not only ships, for plane also they'll use this word mayday. So here the whole night was about endless routine and of pumping out the water, and they were steering the wheel and working on the radio calling for help. And there were no replies to their signals sent over the radio, as they were in the remotest part of the world. They were so interior in the sea, and Sue's head, it was more and more swollen, and she had two black eyes with a cut in her arm. And when upon being asked why she didn't tell him about her injuries earlier, she said that she didn't want to worry him as he was trying to save all of them. By morning on January 3, the pumps had the water level sufficiently under control for us to take 2 hours rest in rotation. But we still had a tremendous leak somewhere below the waterline, and on checking, I found that nearly all the boat's main frames were smashed down to the knee. In fact, there was nothing holds up a whole section of a starboard hull except a few cardboard partitions. We had survived for 15 hours since the wave hit, but Wave Walker wouldn't hold together long enough for us to reach Australia. They checked our charts and calculated that there were 2 small islands a few hundred kilometers to the east. One of them, Ile Armstrong, was a French scientific base. Our only hope was to reach these pinpricks in the vast ocean. But unless the wind and the seas abated so we could not hoist sail, our chances would be slim indeed. The great wave had put our auxiliary engine out of action. So here smashed means badly broken, Neil means steel structure along the base of the ship, and pinpricks means a prick caused by a pin. Pinpricks in the vast ocean means the 2 small islands in the vast ocean were very tiny like a prick caused by a pin. And abated means something unpleasant to become less intense, and auxiliary engine means a small secondary engine used to board ships to operate a windlass in the ship. So here in this paragraph, the water level was under control by the morning of January 3. So all of them, they took 2 hours rest in rotation. So but there still was leak somewhere below the water line. So the water was still coming up inside the ship. So upon checking again and again, the boat rib structure was badly broken down till the base of the ship, under the lower part of the ship. So the whole section of the starboard was held together with the cardboard partitions. So now the ship's condition was so bad and that it would not make till Australia. So the narrator checked the charts and he calculated there were 2 small islands a few kilometers to the east, and one of them was Ile Armstrong, so which was a French scientific base. So their only hope was to search and reach that island. So, but only if the wind and sea do not cause any further damage, else their chances were very low to reach their island. So the wave had destroyed the ship's auxiliary engine so badly. On January 4, after 36 hours of continuous pumping, we reached the last few centimeters of water. Now we had only to keep pace with the water still coming in. We could not set any sail on the main mast. Pressure on the rigging would simply pull the damaged section of the hull apart. So we hoisted the storm jib and headed for where I thought the 2 islands were. Mary found some corned beef and cracker biscuits, and we ate our first meal in almost 2 days. But our respite was short-lived. At 4 p.m., black clouds began building up behind us. Within the hour, the wind was back to 40 knots and the seas were getting higher. The weather continued to deteriorate throughout the night, and by dawn on January 5, our situation was again desperate. So here rigging means the ropes and wires supporting the structure of the ship, and hull means the framework of the vessel. Respite means a short period of rest, and deteriorate means getting worse. So after 34 hours of continuous pumping of the water, on January 4th, the water was only a few centimeters left to be pumped out. So they still had to pump out the water which was coming inside the ship. So they could not set sail on the main pathway on the ocean. So they hoisted the storm jib and sailed towards the 2 small islands which I have mentioned on the previous slide. So they had their first meal in the 2 days, some corned beef and cracker biscuits found by Mary, wife of that sailor. So the rest period was short-lived as black clouds built up around 4 p.m. and the wind was now 40 knots and the sea was getting higher and higher. So early in the morning of January 5th, the weather got very worse and the situation became very bad. When I went in to comfort the children, John asked, "Daddy, are we going to die?" I tried to assure him we could not make it. "But Daddy," he went on, "we aren't afraid of dying. If we can all be together, you and Mummy, Sue and I." I could find no words with which to respond, but I left the children's cabin, determined to fight the sea with everything I had. To protect the weakened starboard side, I decided to heave to with the undamaged port hull facing the oncoming waves using an improvised sea anchor of heavy nylon rope and two 22-liter plastic barrels of paraffin. That evening, Mary and I sat together, holding hands, as the motion of the ship brought more and more water in through the broken planks. We both felt the end was very near. So here heave to means to rise or lift with some effort, and paraffin means colorless flammable oil liquid. So here in this paragraph, when the narrator he went to comfort his children, his son he asked him whether they were going to die, but he tried to console him that they would make it and they will be alive. But his son he replied to him that they are not afraid to die until they were all together. So he was kind of strong, he was determined to fight all this together. So this filled the narrator with a strong will and determination to fight back the sea. So he immediately he made some efforts to protect the weakened starboard side, and he used a improvised sea anchor made of a heavy nylon rope and two 22-liter plastic barrels of kerosene. And after that, the same evening, the narrator and his wife they sat holding their hands, and they believed that their end was near. Although he was determined to fight back the sea, they didn't have that kind of hope that they will be alive. While I was thinking, Sue, moving painfully, joined me. The left side of her head was now very swollen, and her blackened eyes narrowed to slits. She gave me a card she had made. On the front, she had drawn caricatures of Mary and me with the words, "Here are some funny people. Did they make you laugh?" I laughed a lot as well. Inside was a message. "Oh, how I love you both." So this card is to say thank you and let's hope for the best. Somehow we had to make it. Here, sextant means it's an instrument with a graduated arc of 60 degrees for taking altitudes and navigation. And caricatures means a picture of a person or a cartoon. So here in this paragraph, the ship it made through the storm, and by the morning of January 6th, the narrator he tried to get reading a instrument of navigation. So after that he worked with the wind speeds, drift and current calculated their position. They were in 150,000 kilometers area of the ocean, looking for 65 kilometer wide island. So now the narrator, while he was still thinking, his daughter Sue, she joined him, and she was very much in pain. Her left side of the head it was swollen very badly, and her eyes was blackened and narrowed down to slits. So now she gave him a card which she made herself, and on the front of the card there was a cartoon image of her parents, his mom and her mom and her dad, with the words written about them being funny people and how they made her laugh throughout her life. And on inside the card she left a message that she told them how she loved them both and she thanked them, and this message had made the narrator realize that they had to make it to the islands whatever situation was. I checked and rechecked my calculation. We had lost our main compass, and I was using a spare which had not been corrected for magnetic variation. I made an allowance for this and another estimate of the influence of the westerly currents which flow through this part of the Indian Ocean. About 2 p.m., I went on the deck and asked Larry to steer a course of 185 degrees. If we were lucky, I told him with a conviction I did not feel he could expect to see the island about 5 p.m. Then with a heavy heart, I went below, climbed on my bunks and amazingly dozed off. When I woke, it was 6 p.m. and growing dark. I know we must have missed the island, and with the sail we had left, we couldn't hope to beat back into the westerly winds. At that moment, a tousled head appeared by my bunk. "Can I have a hug?" Jonathan asked. Sue was right behind him. Tousled head means disarranged hair of the narrator's son. So it was a nickname for his son Jonathan. Bunk means bed, and dozed off means went off to sleep. So here in this paragraph, the narrator he rechecked his calculations and they lost their main compass. So they were using the spare one which was not corrected for magnetic variation. So he estimated the influence of the western currents which flow through the Indian Ocean. And around 2 p.m. he went onto the deck and he asked Larry, the crewman, to steer the wheel to 185 degrees. So he felt if they were lucky, they would be able to see the island by 5 p.m. And he went below and he slept, and he woke up around 6 p.m. and it was very dark outside, and he thought that they might have missed the island. And he started worrying about how they would tackle this westerly wind more, as the ship, it wasn't capable to sail more. So at that time his son Jonathan, he came and he asked him for a hug, and behind him Sue was also there. "Why am I getting a hug now?" I asked. "Because you're the best daddy in the whole world, and the best captain," my son replied. "Not today, John. I'm afraid." "Why, you must be," said Sue in a matter-of-fact voice. "You found the island." "What?" I shouted. "It's out there in front of us." They chorused. "As big as a battleship." I rushed on the deck and gazed with relief at the stark outline of the Isle Amsterdam. It was only a bleak piece of volcanic rock with a little vegetation, the most beautiful island in the world. So bleak means an area of land lacking vegetation, and stark means sharply defined. So here in this paragraph, he asked why he was getting a hug in this hour, and his son replied that he was the best daddy in the world, and also he called him the best captain. So the narrator, he was very much sad, and he replied that he was afraid that he was not a best captain today. And so immediately she told him that they have found the island which was big as a battleship. So the narrator, he was not able to believe, and he rushed to the deck and he gave a relief sigh. And they could see a complete outline of Isle Amsterdam, and they have reached the island. And there was a bleak piece of volcanic rock in front of them, and it had a little vegetation, and it was the most beautiful island in the world he has seen. We anchored offshore of the night, and the next morning of 28 inhabitants of the island cheered as they helped us ashore. With the land under my feet again, my thoughts were full of Larry and Herbie, cheerful and optimistic under the direst stress, and of Mary, who stayed at the wheel for all those crucial hours. Most of all, I thought of a 7-year-old girl who did not want us to worry about a head injury, which subsequently took 6 minor operations to remove a recurring blood clot between skin and skull, and of a 6-year-old boy who was not afraid to die. So here, anchored means moor a ship to the sea bottom, and offshore means situated at the sea some distance from the shore, and ashore means on the shore of the island. Optimistic means hopeful and confident, having a positive attitude. So now finally they moved the ship at some distance from the shore, and the next morning 28 inhabitants from the Amsterdam island, they helped them to move on the shore of the land. As he felt his foot on the land again in the island, he thought of his crewmen, both crewmen and his wife, and he also thought of a 7-year-old girl who was injured very badly, and she didn't want to bother her parents throughout the journey. So later on she had to go through 6 minor operations to remove the blood clot in her head, and he also thought of his son who never gave up and was not afraid to die. So this is how the story ends, and throughout the story it tells us about how a whole family with the 2 crewmen, they fought each day on the ocean and they survived till the end. So I hope you all understood the story. Thank you students for listening. We'll see you in the next class. Until then, stay safe and have a great day. Thank you so much.